Here's a sneak peek of this week's episode.
Marrakesh, because Marrakesh was crazy. We were like, just like stimulus overload all the time. Like there's people going everywhere, doing all sorts of different stuff.
I'm Scott.
And I'm Melissa.
And we are the Sunshine Travelers. Our passion is travel and sharing our experiences with those who enjoy it as much as we do, or those who want to learn more about travel, or even those who just want to live vicariously through our travel stories. No matter where you fall along that journey, get ready to hear about our first-hand experiences as we visit some of the most interesting and amazing places on Earth. Today, we will be embarking on a trip that has been at the top of my bucket list for quite some time. Although we have visited locations close to Morocco, we've never been on its shores. Join us as we chat with our friend Ashlyn about her experiences planning and visiting Morocco. She will be sharing how she decided where to go, what to see, and where to stay. So pack your bags and let's head towards our first destination on the African continent. We have several reasons why this destination is important to us. Firstly, it's been on our bucket list for quite a while. Secondly, we're planning a visit in October as a part of our African safari. We were considering Morocco on the front end of our trip for a few days. Hence, we wanted to talk to Ashlyn about the process that she used to plan her trip and some of her experiences while in the country.
We are so thrilled to have the opportunity to interview Ashlyn about her trip. As a young person, she took the initiative to plan the trip and work with travel partners to make it happen. Let's hear from Ashlyn, and afterwards we'll summarize the interview and share some insights that we have gained as we plan this portion of our trip.
We're joined today by a friend of ours, Ashlyn, and Ashlyn has actually been to one of the places that is on our bucket list. Matter of fact, this place has been so plaguing to me. I've even been to the point where our phone said, "Welcome to Morocco," but yet we've never been there. And so, Ashlyn, thank you for joining us today. And we want to just dive in, hear a little bit about your story around Morocco, and then, let you just kind of tell us all about the things that you did, where you guys went, the experiences, the food, every bit of it. We want to hear about it.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Yeah. So why don't you start by just telling us a little bit about why Morocco? Where did the inspiration for Morocco come from?
Yeah, I think as we were talking about before we started recording, I have always been interested in history. I was in Model UN in high school and was obsessed with that. So, the international community is something that I've always found very interesting. And then going to law school, being surrounded by a bunch of history nerds every day, it's something that's very much in my blood. And so I think part of the reason I picked Morocco is because it's so different from what we're used to every day here in the US. It's, when you go to Europe is a little bit closer to us, closer to home. And there definitely is an aspect of culture shock and the little things that happen in Europe. I wanted to go somewhere that was so different from the way that we live and just kind of experience how other people live across the globe, because you have these ideas of, what it might be like, but it really is truly astonishing to see it, yourself and be there and experience it. And so that's kind of what I wanted to go for when I was planning this trip.
Yeah, well, so I think this is an important part, Melissa, is to help everybody understand. Ashlyn is currently in law school, and you did this as, I think, a senior trip out of high school.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a little bit delayed because of COVID. And
yeah, my dad had maybe not the best move on his part, but he had promised all of us, anywhere you want to go in the world after high school, I'll take you. And, for me, I was like, we're going to Morocco. And he was like, no, we're not.
Yeah, anywhere but Morocco, right?
He was, we're a family, a bunch of girls and him. And so he was, like I was saying earlier, very afraid, just safety wise, and, because it is so different from the US. It's not like something he knows a lot about and that he feels like he can help us out with if we get in a sticky situation, because he doesn't know the language or the culture, the traditions, anything like that, So he was very hesitant to let me plan this trip, but I ended up doing a ton of research and I found a travel agency that seemed, really awesome. And part of his stipulation of us going was that we, have someone there that spoke the language. And so just talking back and forth with them, we had arranged a like a guide to come with us the whole time, and that kind of got him on board. But yeah, I did plan most of it. I had a ton of help from the travel agency though. It was Oddly Travel. I don't know if you're familiar with them.
No.
No, we're not familiar with them. And so are they
Mhm.
stateside? Are they
They are.
where are they
I think they're
located in?
based in, I want to say Boston, somewhere up north. But the thing I really liked about them was, I got on the phone with them and they had connected me to somebody who was from Morocco. And so she was a travel agent working out of Boston, but from Morocco. And she told me a lot, like the company pays for them to go on these trips every year and to go through the itineraries they make for people and, make sure they're good. And so like she was like, had been to all these places I was talking about. I was like, yes, that one's good. That one's bad. You can do this, but not that. Like, very, very, very helpful and insightful. It's always good to talk to someone who's been there, as I'm sure you both know.
Yes, absolutely.
Mhm.
Have to get that firsthand,
Yeah,
experience. Yeah.
So that was super helpful. I don't want to take too much credit for myself because they did a lot.
Well, yeah, but you took the initiative, right, to like find the travel company. Was it something? So like, how easy was that? I guess, or how did you end up finding them?
It was just a few, Google searches. When I was looking originally to plan the trip on my own, I had ended up going to their website anyway because I was just looking for ideas, of things to do in Morocco, of like the best cities to go to, and where the best routes would be to, to get to the country. So I'd end up stumbling across them anyway. And then when my dad was saying, we need to have somebody there with us, I was like, knew exactly who to go to.
So that's really important, and we talk about that a lot. Is part of traveling to somewhere that you're not familiar with, that speaks a different language, has lots of different customs, that it's important to have someone local who really understands how to navigate all of that system. And
For
we
sure.
had that with us in Ecuador when we traveled to the Galapagos. Someone met us at the airport. They helped us get all of our paperwork ready because there was certain things that we needed to go on to the Galapagos. And, and then they shuttled us through the security lines more quickly and said, oh, you need to go over here. And, all of these different things. And that's very helpful for people who are traveling, especially when you're traveling to somewhere that, you may struggle with communication and things like that.
Absolutely. Yeah. One of his friends went to Morocco and had a completely different experience than we had. We felt very safe the whole time. Our guide was awesome, but she had gone. It was her and like a few others. It was a very small group and they didn't have a guide and she ended up getting mugged. So there are definitely, two sides.
Yeah. Well, I say that if you go somewhere looking for trouble, you can find it. It's
Right.
everywhere that you go. And you just have to always be careful and safe when you're traveling.
Right.
Now, was this your first trip outside the US?
No, we had been on a few, trips just around the US, like the Virgin Islands. I think we had gone on, a cruise to Mexico, stuff like that, but very close to home. And then we had been on a trip to France my junior year of high school. It was a school trip sponsored by our orchestra for the 75th anniversary of D-Day, which was super fun. We got to go to Normandy and Paris and, all those good places. But Morocco was the first. It was our first, like, I would say, like, real international trip. You know what I mean? Like, Paris wasn't really planned by us. That was all kind of taken care of by somebody else. And then obviously the Virgin Islands and Mexico are so close to home. It's almost in the States, it feels
Right.
similar, but
Yeah, for sure. So I have a question about the planning. So how much of like where you went and what you did, like, did you already like have some research and make suggestions to them, or did they pretty much just lay everything out and some of those things were on there, or how did that work?
So I had like a list of cities I wanted to go to and a list of things I wanted to do in those cities. And I pretty much came to them. I said, I want to go like here, 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 here. And some of those places, they were like, that is way too far away. You're going to need to like get on a plane. And that's like not possible. They kind of worked with me and like prioritizing things I wanted to do and, cutting off a few of the things that were just like super far away and not doable because Morocco is a big country. It doesn't, Mercator's map obviously plagues it a little bit, but it doesn't seem like that big of a country. And obviously the US is so big, we're like, it'll be fine. But it's a big country. We did a lot of driving in Morocco to get to all these different places, but a lot of different areas and different, like, I guess, biomes. So definitely worth it to kind of jump around, I think.
Well,
Okay, good.
I'd say let's just jump in right there. Where did you go when you were in Morocco, and what was, maybe if we even just step back and say, what was that list of things that you wanted to do, and then what did you end up doing?
But I originally wanted to do sort of the north part of Morocco, which is, closer to Spain, like Mediterranean area, and then kind of travel down and do, Marrakesh, Casablanca, the Sahara, and stuff like that. And it ended up just being like, it was a lot. It was a lot of driving. We were just, spending a bunch of time in the car. I was like, it's just not worth it, fly all the way over here and spend all your time in the car. So we ended up just doing Casablanca, Marrakesh, Souera, and then the Atlas Mountains, which were all great locations. Casablanca is, a lot of people think is the capital, but it's not. It's Rabat. But Casablanca is one of the bigger cities there, and it was probably my least favorite overall location. But I would say if you're traveling to Morocco, it is a must go just for the Hassan II Mosque. It's one of the only mosques that non-Islam people can go into, or Muslim people can go into, and so obviously that is a plus, but it's also just stunning. I mean, it is mind-boggling. It's one of those things you see pictures of it and you're like, oh, that looks really nice. It looks really pretty. You get there and it is like 8 times as big as you thought it was. And everything there is hand-carved, handmade marble sculptures and tiles. And it is mind-boggling.
Yeah, I remember seeing the pictures when you guys were on your trip and just thinking how beautiful that was. But I also had wondered the question of what you were talking about, that, being non-Muslim, how were you able to visit that? But I guess it's similar to the Alhambra that we visited.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What were you going to say?
I was just going to say, it's the only mosque in Morocco that you can do. Like, you can go and see the outside of some of the other ones, but it's the only one you can go in. But it is beautiful. It is beautiful. But then we went to Marrakesh, and Marrakesh is your more, I guess, traditional, like, Moroccan experience, like what you see the pictures of. It's near the Sahara. So, and they call it the Red City. All the buildings are kind of reddish, almost clay colored. And, these are like winding streets and markets and just people everywhere, and, very hustle and bustle. But that was probably the biggest culture shock moment is, we get to Marrakesh, and our amazing driver, we called him our magic school bus driver, because we would be walking through and next thing you know, that like the van just shows up. Like, it's just there, like when you need it to be there. But so, he would drop us off and we'd be walking through the markets with our guide, and all of a sudden, like, there's the van and ready to go. But I remember when we get to our hotel, we're going through this like alleyway. It looks super scary. We're all like, what did we sign up for? What is going on? And he opens this door and it's just this beautiful like courtyard. It's like everything in Marrakesh is very like, it feels very like hidden, and like, you're going through and then you like find little like enclaves and stuff like that. So that was a super fun thing to sort of explore. The city was awesome. But we get to the hotel, and at nighttime we're all sitting there, and the adhan starts playing, which is Muslim call to prayer. And so, they play it from all of the mosques to let everyone know that it's time to pray. And so we're just sitting there at night, and all these mosques just like one by one start like, they start playing the adhan, and it was crazy. It was the most like mind-blowing moment ever. It was beautiful. It was like awesome, but it was very different, from what we're used to. And then we went to Souera, which is on the ocean, on the coastline. And that is, I guess they call it more of like an oasis area. That's where a lot of argan oil is made, is in that sort of region. And so we went there, and that was a really, really nice change from Marrakesh, because Marrakesh was crazy. We were like, just like stimulus overload all the time. Like, there's people going everywhere, doing all sorts of different stuff, just all this crazy stuff happening. And then we get to Souera, and it's like this beautiful beach city with like, a nice breeze. Marrakesh was so hot. It was really hot. We're in Georgia and it was hot. But then Souera had this, nice breeze coming in. Everyone was really relaxed and chill. And it's a smaller city, so, you're less likely to get lost. And so our guide kind of let us wander off on our own a little bit in Souera, because, nothing too bad was going to happen there. But so that was a really nice change. That was probably my favorite place we went overall. It was really relaxing, but also still a lot of fun cultural aspects and things to do. Like in Souera, we went to the fish market. It's a big fishing city. So we went there and we, picked out some fish with our guide. And then we went and we picked out some vegetables from the market and we took him to a local chef and he like cooked us dinner. And so that was a really, really awesome experience. Just being able to like go in the markets and like, try our hands at bartering, which the guide took over eventually and, stuff like that. But that was awesome. And then after that, we went to the Atlas Mountains, which is where a lot of Berber villages are. And that was a super, super fun experience as well. We ended up going on a hike just like through the valley in the mountains, which was labeled as easy. And I didn't think it was too bad, but let me tell you, my dad complaining the whole time, grandparents complaining, my sisters, they were like, it is hot. We were walking. What did we sign up for? What's going on? But it ended up being so worth it because we got to go to these Berber villages and we got to stay and have lunch with one of the local families. They made lunch for us and we got to like see their house and just kind of how they lived. And that was also like one of my, I don't know, best life experiences ever. That was awesome. It was great. But obviously I don't know if that will be as available to you when you guys are traveling, obviously because of the earthquakes which happened there. I know that a lot of the villages got completely destroyed with those earthquakes.
Right. So that's so interesting because those two experiences that you talk about were something that you really needed, I guess, the travel agency and the guide, both,
Absolutely,
right?
yeah.
Working together to allow you to do that. If we just showed up and said, okay, how do we do that? Like it would be very difficult.
Yeah, I highly, highly recommend guide. We had a guide for our hike that was different from the guide we had for the rest of it, because I want to say that the Berbers speak a different language. You might have to fact check me on that. But so we ended up getting a separate guide who was like from the area basically, and he was only around for the hike. So I'm sure you could hire a guide for those short sort of excursions if you wanted to. It doesn't have to be a 9-day long, tour guide.
Sure.
So we're thinking we probably are going to have like 3 days in Morocco, right? This is just going to be dipping our toes into Morocco. It's part of a bigger trip because we're going to leave from Morocco, go to Kenya. We're going to do a 10-day safari in Kenya and then leave from there and go down to South Africa and down to Cape Town. So,
wow.
We don't have a lot of time to spend long periods of time anywhere other than Kenya and the safari. So given the fact that we've maybe got, 2 to 3 days, what would you recommend?
Well, that's going to be an awesome trip. First off, that sounds amazing. But I think maybe doing 2 days in Marrakesh and then maybe doing the Atlas Mountains. One thing I really wanted to do that I didn't end up being able to do, which I think is a big part of why a lot of people go to Morocco, is the Sahara Desert tours. They do overnight tours in the desert. You can go out there. I think they do like ATVs or camels or horses. You can go out there and they have these camps all set up and you can stay overnight in the Sahara. And that was something I like really, really wanted to do, but obviously with the family restrictions wasn't able to. But they say that the stars at night in the desert are supposed to be mind blowing. If you're going to Kenya and you're going on a safari, you might also have a similar experience there. But I didn't do it, but that was on my bucket list of things maybe that you'd want to do. And you can do that out of Marrakesh. So maybe spending 2 days in Marrakesh and then either spending a day in Souera or a day in the Atlas Mountains, I'd say would be a good start, I think.
Awesome. Ashlyn, spell that for us if you have that handy.
Souera? Oh, I think it's Essaouria.
Okay, just in case somebody's listening, if they're like me, like I'm always like pulling out my Google Maps and marking it, and I would be like, okay, I don't even know where to start.
That was definitely one I had to like Google search, like, how do I pronounce this before we went? Because I just had, no clue. It doesn't look anything like it's pronounced. And I'm sure I'm, still doing a horrible job, but I'm trying my best.
Yes, no, you did. I'm sure you did great. That's how we always are too. And so tell us a little bit, like how long was the trip overall? And then how long did you spend in each of those places that you talked about?
Yeah, I think we went for 9 days. I think I had it written down, but we spent, we spent overnight in Casablanca, and then we went to Marrakesh for, I want to say 3-ish days, but God, I don't remember. But then we went to, was it Souera for a few days as well, like 3 days. And then I want to stay like 1 or 2 in the Atlas Mountains, just enough to, kind of stay there, go on the hike, and then head back to Marrakesh for the flight home.
Okay. Awesome. Awesome.
So like 2 to 3 days in each place.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you, talked about just like Marrakesh and it being overwhelming and stuff like that. One time we were in Lisbon and didn't realize that like it was not that it wasn't so close, but it was so easy to get a flight there or whatnot. And Scott really, that was time number 2 about our being so close. The first time we were on a cruise, went to Gibraltar, and you crossed right there, right? And Scott was like, "Oh, my princess, welcome."
Literally,
right?
you could stand on the rock of Gibraltar, look across, and see Morocco.
Wow, that is awesome.
So, but the second time he was like, maybe we could just change our plans. We're going to go to Lisbon for the weekend. Maybe we'll just change our plans and do this. And I'm just like, I haven't done any research, Scott. I just can't imagine like flying to Marrakesh and then just showing up. And so
I'm the same way.
I think you've confirmed that it would be like, and then we'd have like one day, right? It would just be like, I think that's just too much overwhelming. I need to plan a little bit. Tell us a little bit about your accommodations in each place, right? Because like you mentioned as far as go in and it's these beautiful courtyards, these private pools and fountains and all the tile work and all that kind of stuff. That is what you imagine, right? When you stay at places in Morocco. So talk a little bit about where you stayed and if you have names, and if not, we can get those from you. And okay, we can.
Yeah. So we stayed Le Doge in Casablanca. That was all of the hotels we stayed at were, I'm gonna just preface this, like they were all so unique and different and awesome. The travel, I could not give enough credit to the travel agency. They really set us up with the hotels. But so you stayed at Le Doge in Casablanca, they had these different sort of 1920s themed rooms. And so the one we were staying, they all had, different names of, I don't know, people from movies in the 20s and 30s and stuff like that. But the one we had was all like pink roses, and it was very fun. It was a very quirky, unique place to stay. One thing about Morocco is when you stay at a hotel, well, I say hotel, we stayed at all riads, which are sort of like house converts, if you will, to hotels, not necessarily like, the Marriott like we would imagine. But so it's, it's a smaller place with, more localized staff, it feels. But you get there and they all want to serve you tea. They all want to serve you mint tea. So you sit down and they give you this hot mint tea and it's hot outside. And my mom was like, where's our iced sweet tea? Being from the South, they're like, this is not what we need out here in this heat. But it was delicious. A lot of dentists say like that Moroccan tea will like make your teeth fall out. It is so sweet. It is so much sugar. Like they would be right at home here in the South with the sweet tea. But so you sit down, they'll serve tea. Yeah, it just needs some ice. But they'll serve you your tea and they, get all your bags for you up in your room, just very, I don't know, they're very kind to foreigners, they definitely want people to enjoy the country and the culture. Obviously gets a bad rep here in the West, but they were all, super kind and accommodating. So yeah, Le Doge in Casablanca, and then it was Omaha and Marrakesh, which was the one I mentioned with the beautiful courtyard. It opens up and you're like, where it has, you walk into the sort of lobby and then there's like a false wall almost that the hosts opened up, and it was just beautiful. I'll have to send you all the pictures as well. But
that would be awesome. We would love to share that.
And then that one had a rooftop. We had rooftop access from our room, so we could go sit up on the roof at night, and that was really, really beautiful. And then in Suera, I think it was Here Blue. Definitely not pronouncing that right. It's French, but it was another riad, and it was, super, super tall, very different from the other ones we stayed in, more like a traditional hotel almost. But that was Dad's favorite because it was very nice, very clean, great service, beautiful, beautiful hotel. And then we stayed at, I think it was Kasbah Angkor in the Atlas Mountains, and that was definitely my favorite. It didn't have like traditional air conditioning, so got a lot of complaints there. But I really enjoyed that one just because it was, in the mountains. It had this like beautiful pool you could go and sit and look at the view. And because we had so many people, we had our own like little tower. So that was kind of fun, but that was a really neat place to stay.
Very cool. Yeah, that's really neat. Yeah, Scott would, that would be not having air conditioner or whatever. That would
Yeah,
be.
they
And so
had
I
like
guess,
those little window units, but definitely wasn't enough for the whole tower.
oh, gotcha. I guess so that we'll have like time of the year did you visit? And then how does that compare like to other times of the year and the weather and stuff like that?
I definitely can't speak for the other times of the year, but we went during the summer, like the early-ish summer. It was definitely hot, especially in Marrakesh. Marrakesh was extremely hot. But then in Essaouira, the breeze, it was like in the 70s, it was in the 60s and 70s. Like we got a little cold at times at night. So it definitely fluctuates a lot with, the day and night, the temperatures do. But overall, warmer temperatures, 70s, 80s, 90s. Definitely looser fabrics were, what everybody wore. And I would definitely say like windbreakers as well are always a good option, especially because it does get colder at night.
Okay. Yeah. And as far as women, any restrictions in dress or things that you had to do in particular in certain
Yeah.
situations?
So I know when I was researching this, it seemed so daunting. Like everywhere I was looking up, they were like, you have to dress modestly. People are going to like scream at you and all this stuff. That is so not true. You definitely should dress modestly just because I think it's a part of the culture. And, you're visiting someone else's country, you should do their traditions. But, I saw French tourists walking around in booty shorts and a tank top, and nobody said anything to them. Maybe somebody should have, but nobody did. And so it definitely isn't as scary as people make it out to be on the internet. People are very kind there. They're wanting you to have the best time possible. But I would say for the mosques, they do require, you cover your shoulders, you cover most of your legs, no, your stomach, your chest, everything like that. You don't have to cover your hair or anything. That's not something that they ask. I would say for like day to day though, mostly what we wore were sort of lighter, looser pants, and then either like a t-shirt or like a long sleeve, sort of lightweight t-shirt, something like that. But one thing that I think needs to be emphasized is having good shoes in Morocco. There is a lot of walking. I mean, it's a lot of those roads are so old, you cannot access them, through a car or whatever. There's going to be a significant amount of walking around, which is honestly the best way to get to know the cities anyway. So definitely some good shoes.
Sure. And would you recommend like closed-toe shoes, tennis shoes, or sandals are
Yeah,
okay?
tennis shoes worked well for me, I'd say.
Great. Talk a little bit about the food. I mean, what was the food like?
Yeah, so the food was great. I loved the food. It was very up my alley. A lot of fish. They do chicken and tagines a lot, so that was a popular one, popular one amongst the family. We had a lot of tagine. In fact, by the end of it, everybody was so sick of tagine. But if you're into fish, the fish there is very, very good, especially in Essaouira by the sea. That fish was awesome.
Will you just explain what tagine is for somebody who might
Yeah,
be
so
listening and might not know?
it's like this clay pot, and I believe they cook it over coals, and it's like chicken and like a stew with pickled lemons, which is a flavor I didn't even know existed until I had it. I like bit into it. I was like, I have never tasted anything like this. It's almost like a sweet sort of taste. It's really, really interesting. It was blew my mind the first time I had it. I was like, this is so beyond what I'm used to.
Wow. Yeah, I haven't heard of that. So
Mhm.
yeah, I've heard that that's part of it. That's interesting. And so when you talked about you go into the market and then them preparing the food, what
Mhm.
was it that similar dish or did they do something different or what
No,
was
so
that like?
we just had fish. It was just sort of like a grilled fish that we had picked out from the market with some vegetables and things like that. But that was a really fun experience. The fish market was it was crazy. I mean, they just had these like carts of fish that were wheeling around, and my family was so grossed out. But it smelled quite bad. It smelled not great, but it was super fun.
So, in the evenings, would you mostly eat at like restaurants, or would you eat in the hotel, or
Mostly
how would you?
restaurants. Yeah. Our tour guide was super, like, he knew, it seemed like he knew everybody, but he knew, like all the good restaurants. So if we were in the mood for something, be like, hey, can you take us to like this kind of food? Especially like in the bigger cities. I think one night was my parents' anniversary, and so we ended up doing like a sit down, like Italian sort of dinner for them. But we went to a few different restaurants that had, I'm trying to think, I don't think I remember the names of any of them. I'm sure I have them somewhere in this itinerary I can send to you. But we went to this one restaurant that was in this old Spanish fort, which was really neat. That was fun to see. I think that was in Casablanca, I believe. But that was a really fun one.
Very cool. So you didn't have to have like reservations ahead of time? It sounds like y'all just kind of said, this is what we want. Or was there times where you had to plan ahead?
I honestly don't know because I think the agency set up most of it. I do feel like most of it was our guide would set it up for us kind of on the spot. Just because a lot of times he'd be like, hey, look, I have like these options for dinner. Or we'd be like, hey, we're kind of in the mood for this, and he would help us out there. In the Atlas Mountains, though, obviously not many restaurants. So we ate in the Berber village for lunch, and then for dinner and for breakfast we had at the hotel.
Okay. And what
So
what was the food? So when you ate with the family, what was that meal like?
It was a lot of like fruits and vegetables, mostly is what I remember, especially because we were on the hike. That fresh fruit was like, that was a godsend. But I think there was tagine as well with the chicken.
Great.
Cool. Yeah.
Well, is there anything else that you can think of that we haven't asked you about that if someone was visiting, they really needed to know?
It is like so different from the US. I cannot emphasize how awesome that sort of culture shock moment was. It was a mind-blowing experience. I highly recommend it to everybody. Just that different perspective on how other people live outside of the US is really valuable, I think.
Great. Well, one of the things we always ask Melissa at the end of an episode, especially one that has to do with the destination, is what do you need to pack? So give us a rundown on a packing list real quick.
Yeah, I definitely mentioned a little bit of it earlier, but a lot of lightweight fabrics, lots of, loose fitting pants and shirts. If you're in Marrakesh, it is hot. You're not going to want something heavy on at all. Dressing modestly is important, even for men at times, and then I would say like some good shoes. Like backpacks, definitely one of those backpacks that either locks or a fanny pack or under the shirt, something like that, just as like an extra layer of safety. In those markets, it can get super crowded and hectic, and you're too busy looking at where am I walking, what's going on. Somebody could just walk up right behind you and grab your phone. So definitely one of those sort of safety feature bags, I'd say, is also very important.
Okay, yeah, that's good to know.
I did want to ask a little bit about, because I believe I remember seeing on Instagram that shopping was a big part of your trip in Marrakesh.
Oh, yes. Shopping is a big part of wherever my family goes.
Yeah.
There's always shopping. Yeah, so our guide took us, obviously through the markets, got to go to a bunch of different like stalls, but he also knew, a lot of really good artisans to go to. And so he took us to this one, he was almost like an antique collector. And we went there and he had all this beautiful stuff from different like riads around Morocco. And Mom ended up finding these, I think they were windows, like old windows from a riad, and bought those and took those back home, and now they're in our house. But
that's very cool.
Yeah, no, they're beautiful. I want to say they're from Fez, which is up north. Yeah, I believe. And then I got a rug, which was on my list of sort of things to do in Morocco, was buy a rug.
Right.
And so, we told our tour guide, like, hey, really would like to purchase a rug. And he took us. That was an awesome experience in Marrakesh, to this rug artisan. And he, had a bunch of people, and he'd say, like, what are you looking for? And he would just like have these men like, throw out this rug, and it would roll out to you. It was, just rug after rug. And that was a crazy experience. I've never seen so many rugs in my life. So many rugs in that man's shop. But yeah, found one that I love, and it's sitting in my living room now. So
nice. Very nice.
Yeah.
Well, we do have 3 questions that we like to end every interview with. And so we'll hit these kind of rapid form. But, what is your favorite place that you've ever visited? And I think I know the answer, but I'll let you tell
Yeah,
me.
it's absolutely Morocco. I mean, that was a once in a lifetime trip.
And then any one of the specific places.
I would say Suera just because of sort of the situation we were coming from. You know, we were so tired after Marrakesh, and it was just such a breath of fresh air. And it was, that was, I guess, more of the vacation side of the vacation, less of the running around and more of the sitting by the beach and having dinner. And so that was probably one of my favorite places we went.
And then what's the top spots on your bucket list? So these are places you haven't been to yet, but they're definitely up there on your bucket list.
Well, before I wanted to go to Morocco, I really wanted to go to Turkey. That got vetoed, but Turkey is absolutely on my bucket list. I would love to do India. I think India would be amazing. And then actually Vietnam, I think would be a really fun place to go.
Well, we're definitely talking about a Southeast Asia trip at some point.
Yeah.
And so, I think you can't go to Southeast Asia and not go to Vietnam.
Yeah, we have another friend who go ahead.
No, I was going to say it's like one of the most biodiverse countries. So, I mean, it's supposed to be amazing.
Yeah, we have another friend who she talks about it too. Like Vietnam is just, she just absolutely loves it as well. And so that's very interesting because those are three places that a lot of people would not mention, I think, right? So you have some, typical things you hear over and over again. So that's very interesting. You have some places.
I think that's what I like of almost just I think my favorite part of traveling in general is the culture shock, and just like this, like it's so different. It like almost blows your mind, and like definitely experience that in Morocco, and would love to experience it again.
Well, you'll definitely get that when you go to India.
I think so. I've got a friend and his family's from India, and we're in law school together, and he brought it up like, hey, end of law school India trip, and I was like, that's what I want to do.
Yeah, I've done kind of central India and the southernmost part of India. I've never been into the north. And, I want to take Melissa sometime when we can go on vacation, and Taj Mahal is definitely way up there on my list of places to visit.
Yeah, that's what I've heard is that it's supposed to be super awesome. I had a friend who went recently and the pictures were they were beautiful.
Yeah. Okay. Last question is, where are you going next?
That's a good question. I have a few friends who are currently in school over at the UK. And so I kind of made a promise to them that I would go and visit at some point. So likely the UK, if not, my youngest sister has dominion over the next family vacation when she graduates. And she really would like to go to Greece and Italy, sort of Mediterranean area. So I think that is probably our next go-to.
You think I can convince Mark to adopt us into the family?
Probably, but yeah.
We love those places.
We do love those places. All those are great choices. And like you said, not as much of a culture shock, but yet even in the UK, right? There are things that are different, right? The way that they say things are different. The words they use, just lots of different things. So anywhere you travel, right? You can have
absolutely.
You should definitely try to drive while you're there.
In the UK? That would be an experience. Yeah, all my friends over there don't drive. They, just take the tube.
For good reasons.
So, yeah.
Well, now, if they're in London, especially, in London. I'll driven the car into London and parked it and all that good stuff. And
I didn't get any tickets.
I didn't get any tickets in London.
That's good.
Well, Ashlyn, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. I think you've given us a lot of great ideas that we need to now go back and, I've spent a lot of time on the safari part of it, but we haven't spent a lot of time on the Morocco and South Africa piece yet. So I'm anxious to take this information and now go and, maybe hone in our search a little bit more.
Yeah. And I'll absolutely send over all of the materials I have, which is quite a lot.
That would be, we really appreciate, we really appreciate all this information. So,
I hope you guys have a great trip. I mean, it sounds like you already have a wonderful bit set up with South Africa and Kenya. So,
well, Melissa, I think after listening to Ashlyn, we might need to save Morocco for another trip where we're going to have more time. I've been looking, the expenses of getting there are proving to be greater than the benefit of only spending a few days there.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I really think that just after all the things she has told us, like it would be just so hard to just go to Marrakesh or just choose Casablanca or just choose Essaouira. Like you really need to experience the differences that she talked about and then just have time to enjoy being there and explore as well.
Yeah, and I'm also finding out that like I thought it would be easy to move throughout the continent of Africa. It's so easy to move through Europe. It's so easy to move through the US. I just didn't think that it was going to be so difficult to move from one country to another in Africa.
Yeah, and what you found is like even if we can, get to Morocco, then it's very difficult then to get to Morocco to Kenya without like multiple stops, right? Like you're saying at least 2 or 3 or more like stops, and then it's very cost prohibitive as well.
But when I say stops, a stop like in Turkey, not even in Africa.
Sure. So I guess just, not knowing like how people would travel. So like this is something, this might be a possibility. So, I mean, that's a great point, right? For our listeners to like, I think that's why we always say like you book your air first. Like that is always the first step, because if you can't make that piece work affordably or with point or whatever it is, right, you're trying to accomplish, then the rest of the trip just isn't going to make sense. So that's why that's always the first step.
Yeah. So I just don't know that it's going to work this time to go to Morocco, which that really pains me because it's once again so close, but yet so far.
Elusive. So, I mean, that really gives us the opportunity. The other thing that I wanted to talk about here is the fact that I really think this is one of those destinations where it really benefits you to work with a travel partner, work with an agency or somebody from Morocco or someone like that, right? Who can really help you maximize your time, your transportation, and then just really nail down what it is that you hope to accomplish, right? That's true in the Galapagos. That is true for an African safari. And I think this is just another trip. And so Ashlyn's given us a great, somebody to look at, somebody to talk to. And then just also, I think because she did that, then just having the experiences that she got to have, like she mentioned, going and getting to meet the Berber family and have some time there where if you just are completely on your own. So, and I think that's why really, we mentioned in the episode or in the interview when we talked to her, but, not just wanting to fly from Lisbon that time and just go in it and say, okay, what are we going to do? Like, I feel like just that would have been so overwhelming. And I think this is just a great example of when you might partner with somebody to help you get the information.
And that's a really good thing about all these locations that we talk to, or rather that we talk about, is that they're so unique in the ways that you might plan them. We've had so many interviews and conversations recently with people who, they did the same things we do. They go online, they start looking for flights, they get the flight, then they look for a hotel, and then, then once they get the hotel, they figure out what are they going to do while they're there. And I just don't feel that Morocco is one of those places where you could do that.
Yeah, I agree.
She did mention a few locations that we just weren't even familiar with. So I think on our radar, we had heard about Fez, we had heard about Marrakesh, and we had heard about Casablanca, but I didn't know anything about Essaouira.
Yeah, and then for her to say, like, that was a not miss place, right? That was something that she said, this has to be on the list. So that's always good to know. And that's why we want to do this and share this, right? So that you can, hear other people's experiences and weigh those options and say, oh yeah, let's definitely try to make that work too.
And then the other place was the Atlas Mountains. And, that's where she talked about going and visiting the Berber families and having a meal with them and stuff like that. So, I think it just will be to our benefit. Push Morocco out again, no matter how much it pains me to say that, and then do some research and put the time into it. And then when we do Morocco, we're going to do Morocco right.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you say that too, because, and I know we keep mentioning that Amazing Hotels, but we're really obsessed with that show. But they had an episode too where he got to do that as well, right? He went it was one of the families of somebody at the hotel, and he went to see where they live and talk, go their family. They took a hike like Ashlyn talked about. And so, if you're interested, just kind of seeing what that would look like and seeing the scenery of that, like you could check that out.
So I don't know if you know this or not, but when we're in the Masai Mara, I believe that one of the nights we're going to go to visit with the Masai tribe.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think that, again, that is a benefit of not just going to a place and doing everything on your own, right? Because then you have an opportunity to plan something like that. So yeah, I'm super excited about that because I feel like that the people and have an experience with local people. And I know we've talked about that. We talked about in the Bahamas episode, and just getting to meet Krista and talk to her and then just talking to different people and spending, time with them is just such a big piece of the travel that we need to incorporate more and be more aware of. So yeah, I'm super excited about that.
Anything else on Morocco you want to talk about?
So I definitely think that the shopping there too, I think for anybody. So it's interesting that she mentioned that, but other people that I know who have been to Morocco, always about, the textiles and the shopping. And if they were one person that comes to mind in particular, they were doing this as part of a longer trip, right? And so that was the one place where they were like, okay, we're going to buy some things and have some things shipped home to our family and that will be there, because I think that's a big piece of it. And having those things as souvenirs, yes, but in a different way, because then you incorporate them into your, to your daily life. Kind of like we have all the Turkish towels that we, brought home from Greece that we use on a daily basis. So I think is big on my radar too.
Well, in the photography, like I've seen so many pictures recently of like the spice markets and Marrakesh and stuff like that. Like I truly was looking forward to it, but I know that when we go, we're going to have an opportunity to see some amazing things, and I'm just going to continue to look forward to it.
Yeah, just all the colors, right? And then the sights and sounds. But yeah, having somebody to then take you through the market, and help you navigate that.
Well, sometimes that's how it works out when you're planning a trip. We're still going to do the safari, so that's something to look forward to. But once again, Morocco will have to wait. I remember when we were on our Mediterranean cruise at one point, and we were so close to being Morocco that our phone said, "Welcome to Morocco."
Got to actually have a screenshot of that.
As we were leaving the Port of Gibraltar, that popped up. And I think initially this was a way for me to check off the continent of Africa. I had a goal to reach all continents across the world. And because I didn't know a lot about Africa, I think Morocco was one of those easy little, it was just across from Portugal, right? It's just a dip your toe in, check off Africa, and now you're done. But the more that we've learned about Africa, the more it's like, we got to spend more time there. If you have any suggestions on a short itinerary for Morocco, please send me an email, scott@sunshinetravelers.com, and let us know what you would suggest, as well as any recommendations on where to stay.
When we are booking our trips, we like to use booking.com because you can choose from over 1 million properties worldwide, from cozy country homes to sleek city apartments. You can find the best deals with their price match promise. Enjoy great stays at lower cost. And flexibility matters, so you can book with confidence knowing that you can cancel with ease. And you can also make informed choices because there are millions of reviews from fellow travelers. Start your adventure now and visit sunshinetravelers.com/booking to book your perfect stay. Using this affiliate link to book your travel helps support our podcast and allows us to continue to provide new content on a weekly basis. Please consider using this link when booking your next travel. There's no extra cost to you, and we are compensated through the affiliate.
We hope you enjoyed this episode and will find some inspiration to help you with your travel journeys. Please consider going on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review. The more 5-star reviews we have, the more likely we are to be featured and discovered by others. Make sure to follow or subscribe to our podcast to be notified of new episodes as they are released. You can also find us on Instagram as Sunshine Travelers Podcast. Remember, that is travelers with 1 L. Most importantly, share it with your friends to help them catch the travel bug. You never know, they may become your greatest travel companion.